Hello friends, in this lecture I'm going to discuss about the importance of virtual function, and during this discussion we're going to understand two new concepts in virtual function, that virtual table and virtual pointer, and gradually we're going to build the relationship how can we achieve runtime polymorphism or called rate binding using virtual function. So let's start the discussion. Let's first try to understand what is the need of virtual table and how this table is created when you working with the virtual function. So let's start with one simple demonstration. Suppose we have a class here, class base, and class base has one virtual function, virtual void fun, simply displaying a single message here from base virtual function. Okay, and next what are you going to do? Suppose we are inheriting a class called derived as public mode of inheritance from the base class, and base derived class have no functions, no simple member function, no virtual functions, nothing. Okay, now look at this base class. Base class have what? Base class have at least there is one virtual function is there, one virtual function is there, and derived class is further derived from base class. So remember, most important point regarding virtual function is that if a class have at least one virtual function, a virtual table will be created at compile time by the object of the class, means suppose that inside main method we are creating object of base. So what will happen in this case, when we create this object of base class as obj, then at first default constructor gets called. Reason is that base class have no constructor defined, means base class have not defined any constructor on its own, so default constructor gets called. So once default constructor gets called, object gets created. Once object gets created, then a virtual table will be created by the object. Okay, so what are the steps we should follow? Step number 1, first base class default constructor gets called. Second, object of base class gets created. Third step, a virtual table will be created for the base class. Fourth step, a public data member called VPTR we called it virtual pointer will be created by the compiler and placed inside the base class. So what compiler will do during compilation is going to add one data member called bptr. How it is look like? It is a function pointer declared as function pointer, and a virtual pointer is look like this, bptr will be inserted by the compiler as public data member of the base class. Fifth step, what compiler will do? Compiler will initialize the bptr of the base class by the address of virtual table of base class. Means if a class have at least one or more virtual function, a table will be created. What is this table? This table is called virtual table or B table. Okay, so virtual table is also called B table. Will be created for the base class at compile time. What this B table will have? B table is a static array and have the information regarding the class virtual functions. Okay, so how many virtual functions class base have? Class base have at least one virtual function is there, so it has only one entry. And what bptr will have? As we mentioned, compiler will initialize the bptr of the base class by the address of virtual table of the base class. Means now this bptr will have what? bptr will have the address of what? Address of base class b table. So everything done at compile time. Okay, next what we did, we had inherited derived class from the base class. So as we all know, when we inherit a class from another class and we are using public mode of inheritance, then all public and protected data member remain as it is inside the derived class also. Means now this derived class also have this function. Which function? Virtual void fun, and also it has what? It has this public data member called function pointer bptr. So means we can add one more line also as a concept of virtual table. If a class is inherited from a class which has a virtual function, then a virtual table also created for the derived class. Means when you're going to create an object of derived class here, then a virtual table of derived class will be created. So if virtual table for the derived class also created, then definitely this inherited data member from the base class also available here. And now what this bptr will have? This bptr will have the address of what? Address of derived virtual table. address of derived virtual table. Okay, then suppose from the main method, now we are trying to call this method d dot void fun, and we know what is fun. Fun is a virtual function of base class, but derived class did not provide any information or did not provide the override information of the fun method inside the derived class. So means b table of derived class will have an entry of fun virtual function fun virtual function of base class. So means when you try to call d.fun, the base fun method gets called. So let's put it in a comment and let's compile this code. And for that we need to add the header file also. So now if we compile this code, we found that base class virtual function gets called although we are calling using the derived class object. So it means that virtual functions also inherited in the derived class and a virtual table for the derived class also created. In the next lecture, we are going to see how those all virtual table look like when we have a class, a virtual function, or when a class is inherited from a class which has at least one virtual function. Okay, so in the next lecture, we are going to discuss about this, and we are also going to discuss how to achieve late binding using virtual function. I hope the idea is clear of virtual function. Here, if a class has at least one virtual function, a virtual table will be created by the object of that class during compilation. And a virtual pointer will be assigned to that class by the object of that class during compilation. And the virtual pointer will have the address of that virtual table of that class. A virtual table is nothing, it is a static array and have at least one entry for each virtual function, either directly or either inherited property. Okay, thank you.